So you're tuning in because you want to sharpen your vocabulary.
Yeah.
And you want to do it efficiently.
Yeah.
Maybe for a test or a big presentation or, just to get your points across better. Well, you're definitely in the right place.
That's exactly what we're digging into in this deep dive.
Yeah.
We've got some really good stuff here from the IELTS Mastery Talks podcast. An episode focused specifically on boosting vocabulary for higher level English speakers. Think of this as your shortcut to the best strategies.
Precisely. And our mission isn't just to throw a bunch of fancy words at you.
Yeah.
We're going into how to really build your vocabulary, looking at practical techniques, real examples. The goal is for you to leave feeling, properly informed, but not overloaded.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Let's start with the foundation, maybe what we could call high impact vocabulary.
Right.
The podcast we looked at, it highlighted 10 keywords you see a lot in more academic or formal writing. We could maybe look at the first 3 to start.
Okay, sounds good. The first one they mentioned was alleviate.
Which means to lessen something or make it less severe. The example was, this measure could alleviate poverty in rural areas. It's a sort of stronger way to say reduce suffering.
Exactly. A bit more formal. Then there's inevitable, meaning something that's, certain to happen.
Unavoidable.
Pretty much. The example given was, with automation, job displacement seems inevitable. It really conveys that sense of something you can't stop.
Yeah, it does. And the third one in this first batch was substantial, which means significant or quite large.
Considerable.
Yeah. The example was, there has been a substantial increase in housing prices. Just sounds a bit weightier than saying a big increase.
And what's really key about words like these is the impact they carry. You find them all the time in academic text, formal reports, that kind of thing.
Right.
Using them well really shows you have a strong grasp of a language.
Yeah.
And I often, suggest a level of authority or careful thought can change how people receive your message.
And the podcast had a great tip here. Yeah. Don't just memorize definitions.
No, definitely not.
Learn them in chunks, in context. Read sample essays or articles and really notice how these words are used. See them in action.
That's such an important point, because just knowing the meaning isn't enough, is it?
Not really.
Seeing them used properly helps you get the feel, the nuances, the right situations to use them in.
Okay, so that covers some foundational words. Now, how about sounding less like you swallowed a dictionary and more natural?
Yes. Fluency. This brings us to collocations and common phrases.
Collocations, okay.
Exactly. These are just word combinations that native speakers use automatically. They just fit together.
Like the classic example, right? We say make a decision, not do a decision.
Precisely. It just sounds right. The podcast highlighted a few strong ones, like raise awareness.
Ah, yes. As in, campaigns can raise awareness about climate change.
See how raise and awareness pair up so naturally? It often feels, more idiomatic than just increase awareness. Why do you think that is? Maybe just frequency.
Yeah, maybe frequency, or maybe there's some kind of, inherent logic to it that feels right over time.
Could be. Another good one was play a vital role.
Right. Teachers play a vital role in a child's development. That really emphasizes how important they are.
Yeah, vital role definitely has more punch than just important role. It's funny how some pairings just click, isn't it?
It is. Are there times when something seems logical but just sounds wrong?
Oh, definitely. I think it really boils down to what people are actually used to hearing and saying over and over.
That makes sense. Okay, what else? Impose a ban.
Like the government imposed a ban on smoking indoors. It's specific, a bit formal maybe, but clear.
Yeah. And they also threw in a few more everyday ones, right? Like heavy traffic, deep concern, growing demand.
Exactly. We use these kinds of clusters all the time without even thinking about it.
So why should you, listening now, actually care about collocations?
Well, using them is a huge boost for fluency. It makes your English, spoken and written, sound much more natural.
More idiomatic.
Exactly, like you have that intuitive feel for the language.
So less like reading from a script.
Right. And the podcast suggested a really practical tip. When you're reading or watching the news, maybe, jot down these common pairs you notice. Build your own little collection.
That's a good habit to get into. Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about tailoring your language, building vocabulary for specific topics.
Yes, this is super important, whether it's for your job or talking about current events or even just hobbies.
Right.
The podcast used 3 common IELTS topics as examples, but honestly, they're relevant way beyond just tests.
Okay, so first up was education. Key vocabulary included curriculum.
The example was, the curriculum should include more life skills.
And curriculum just means basically what's taught, right?
Yeah.
The subjects and content.
Yeah, precisely. Using the word adds that touch of specificity.
Then there was holistic development, as in schools must focus on the holistic development of students.
That's a good one. It means looking at the whole student, not just academics, but emotional, social, physical growth too. More nuanced.
Definitely more than just grades. And the last one for education was rote learning. Example. Rote learning limits creativity. You'll remember flashcards, right?
Exactly. Just memorizing by repetition, often without really understanding. It tends to have a bit of a negative feel in education discussions.
Right. Okay, next topic, environment. They mentioned carbon footprint.
A big one. It's the total carbon dioxide someone or something releases. Key term for climate change talk.
For sure. And they also listed deforestation, biodiversity, and renewable energy, all essential for that topic.
Absolutely.
And finally, technology. Automation was mentioned.
Yep. Automation has revolutionized manufacturing, using tech to do tasks with less human input. Super relevant today.
Totally. And they also gave us digital divide, cybersecurity, tech savvy, and innovation. Good, solid tech words.
Yeah, good starter pack for tech discussions.
And here's that pro tip again, which I thought was really useful. Pick maybe 3 or 4 topics that actually matter to you. Your interest, your work, whatever. Build a specific word bank for those.
Yeah.
And then, this is the key part, practice using them. Write with them, speak with them.
Exactly. That's how it sticks. It makes the learning personal and, frankly, much more efficient. You're learning words you'll actually use.
Okay, so learning the words, learning the phrases, that's all great, but how does it, actually look and sound when you put it together?
Good question. Let's look at vocabulary in action. The podcast gave some nice examples.
Okay.
First, a writing task 2 question, like you might see on a test. Some people think governments should invest in public services rather than the arts. Do you agree or disagree?
Right, a classic debate. And they gave a little snippet of an answer.
They did. Here it is.
Oh.
While the arts enrich society, public services are essential for maintaining quality of life. Investing in healthcare and education should be prioritized as they play a vital role in societal development.
Okay, I can see it there. Using prioritized, vital role, societal development. It elevates the argument, doesn't it?
Absolutely. These aren't just filler words. They add precision. They add weight. It makes the writing sound more considered and persuasive.
Makes sense. And they had a speaking example, too.
Yep. A speaking cue card. Describe a technology you use every day.
Something most of us could talk about.
For sure. And the sample bit went like this. I rely heavily on my smartphone. It helps me stay organized and productive. I use it not just for communication, but also for online banking, navigation, and even language learning apps. It's an indispensable tool in modern life.
Nice. Again, words like indispensable, rely on, productive. They're not overly complex, are they? But they're effective.
Exactly. They're precise and they help the description flow really naturally.
It makes the point clearly.
And what's interesting in both examples, I think, is that it's not just about using big words. It's about choosing the right word for the context to get your meaning across accurately.
Yeah, that's the real skill, bridging that gap between knowing a word and actually communicating with it.
Precisely.
Okay, so to kind of wrap this up, we have done a deep dive into boosting your vocabulary using insights from that IELTS Mastery Talks podcast. We looked at those high-impact academic words, why natural collocations are so important for fluency.
And building that topic-specific vocabulary that's relevant to you.
Right. And the big takeaway really seems to be about action, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The podcast really hammered this home. You need to read regularly, actively, spot new words in context.
And then use them.
Yes. Make a conscious effort. Put them in your writing. Say them out loud. Repetition and active use, that's what makes them stick.
It's not passive learning.
Not at all. It's got to be active.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you to maybe chew on. Think about the specific areas in your own life or maybe your passions where you really want to communicate better, more powerfully. What are those topics for you? And how could applying these techniques, consciously building and using vocabulary for those specific areas, how could that really elevate how you express yourself, making you sound clearer, more confident, and ultimately more impactful?